I'm here talking with Leslie Acevedo. She runs a blog called Salt Life Provision, where she really gives a lot of great tips and tricks about living more sustainably. I also want to note that Leslie works full time. She has two boys. She's busy. She's a normal person. And that's why I was so interested in interviewing her and hearing about her journey into a more sustainable lifestyle. So, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today. And can you just talk a little bit about how you started your journey into this more conscious living lifestyle?
About 5 years ago, my husband and I started to talk a little bit about kind of how to de-stress and clear out things that are distractions in life. And so we kind of started with minimalism. We started with looking at different things in our life and getting rid of things responsibly, not just tossing them to the trash, but really thinking through where will these clothes end up? Where will, this stuff end up?
So how do you properly get rid of all this plastic that we have and things that are just going to end up sitting in a landfill that aren't, biodegradable?
And I just want to level set for 1 second. I just want to say that the things that we're talking about today apply to people who have access to clean water, food,
Right.
People who live lifestyles similar to ours in the Western world. Just to make sure that that's clear.
Right.
We have the time and the energy for these things, right? To think through these things thoughtfully. But I think as far as getting rid of things, I think number one, it's important, what you have access to in your city. I know for us here, I live in the Orlando area. We have resources online, and they also have these little pamphlet things that they send out where they can help to explain where these things will end up, or the times of the year that they pick specific things up, and what can and cannot be recycled. And I think that that's important, rather than just tossing everything in a recycle bin, knowing that it won't be recycled with that plastic screen on it. It won't be recycled with the lids on it. If it's dirty, in my area, you have to clean things.
Right.
And then I also think community is a huge part of it. Trying to pay attention to are there people I could be helping with these things? Or is there a women's shelter that needs furniture, baby clothes, that type of thing?
Right.
We don't always have to dump everything at the Goodwill, for instance. You can be more intentional about your passing on.
I mean, even if you're giving it to, a friend that could use it, I mean, it's all just about getting the most out of every single item.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to your disclaimer about how we're, on this Western society that we're fortunate enough and privileged enough to have access to clean water and food. And most of us are able to consume and buy way beyond our means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know a lot of people, their reaction to this is, well, we live in the most fortunate place on the planet. We're able to do this, so enjoy it. And I think we're beyond that point now. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want it to sound too dramatic or intimidating, but we've sort of created this mess. And I feel now we sort of all have to do our part to start cleaning it up as best as we can.
Yeah.
So a lot of people wanted to know how you can involve your kids in this and teach them about, sustainable living and saving our planet.
What's interesting is since the age gap on my kids is so broad, I'm able to kind of speak to two sides of this. So first of all, having a child that's small and I'm already in this lifestyle, it's very easy to include him in adding the recyclables to the recycle bin, and he knows where the composter is, and he has the amount of toys he has fits in a little basket, and understanding that if we get new things from someone else, we might push other things to someone else.
Right.
I think with the older ones, or if you're introducing this to your family, I think it's very important that you don't push too hard. I think it's important, really, ultimately, as time goes and your kids see you making these changes and they're more aware of it and it's present in your household, I think the shift will happen naturally. I notice with my older one, he follows me on Instagram, he sees my posts, he reads them, he likes them. We started with minimalism with him, which was really hard. He was an only child for a long time. He had a lot of things. We did a 30-day kind of one item a day you're going to donate. And that's really where it started for him. We had a box by the front door. This was early on in our minimalism like thing. We had a box by the front door. Every day he had to put one item in there. And then we figured out where to bring those things and what to do with them. But you have to shift your mindset for any of this to work.
I, a lot of times will go into, my 4-year-old's room and be like, okay, there's too much in here. Like, this is unnecessary. We're going to, be giving this to somebody else that can use it. And even that for her is like, wait a second, like, where are you taking all my stuff?
Yeah.
Getting them more involved by just picking one thing a day is a great, great, great tip.
They just feel like you're stripping their things away. They don't understand it. That's the world that they've lived in.
Right.
So you got to bring them alongside of you and say, here's how we're going to tackle this. And like, here's why it's important, or there's someone else that needs these things.
Right. And then just going back to like how, teaching your kids about this, Sequoia, she's like obsessed now with using like reusable straws. Like if we go, like she understands now that like a plastic straw, she equates that with like ending up in the ocean and like killing a fish. So if she sees a plastic straw, she'll be like, no, like she'll literally like make an X with her fingers and be like, I don't want this to kill a fish. Like this is bad. And, only has like we have our little metal straws. And now, I mean, here it's so rare you actually get a plastic straw.
That's good.
But yeah, no, it's good. And I know it's different like everywhere. I mean, I'm like in like a progressive bubble here in Southern California, especially like in my exact location. But there's still things that I don't know. And one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is because I read your post about how you were feeling guilty at work to even go on a break to get like a protein bar because it's packaged in plastic, And I consider myself somebody that's like very current and progressive. And I thought I was doing a good job until I realized like I have never even paid attention to like packaging in a grocery store. And so a lot of people want to know too, that are on this journey, like how do you grocery shop more sustainably when everything is packaged, horribly?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important, number one, to realize that these things aren't necessarily on us, right? As the individual consumer, just one person isn't making a huge impact besides like awareness in general. Right. But spread that across the country if we're all doing little changes. And really all we're doing is trying to get back to the place we were before everything was disposable.
Right.
People have been doing this for generations.
Right.
We just live in the disposable age. So we're just trying to get back one generation or so.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's important to realize. And that's where kind of like my guilt would come from of like, once you get into this, like you're like, oh no. But you have to remind yourself that really the step to take there, rather than being anxious about it, is to challenge the company themselves. Like, hey, I really love your products. Is there a way that you can make your packaging more sustainable? Sending an email, obviously a pleasant email. You don't ever want to come off like aggressive, but I think companies are really going to start to be open to these things as others are making that change and new companies are coming out that are sustainable out the gate.
Right.
You have to adjust because there's going to be enough of us that are saying, hey, I really want this thing, but I'm not going to buy it because it's what it comes in. You could easily make this into a paper packaging or something different.
So do you buy a lot of your stuff in bulk?
So I actually don't have access to bulk store here in Orlando. We don't have one yet. Okay. I definitely think that could be coming in the coming years. I mean, we are a large city in the U.S. Either that or maybe some of the local grocery stores will kind of maybe carve out a section for that. So really it's like, I think the only steps that like we're able to take specifically are creating our own produce bags. You kind of showed some bags like this the other day where it kind of has the stitching across here. Clothes came in it like a long time ago. So bringing, you already bring your bags, bring some made produce bags. There's some YouTube videos on how to make them out of pillowcases, something you already own, which is really cool. And then buying produce that's loose, going to farmers markets. Again, if you have access to that, a farmers market's really great because you're also supporting local, business. You can get all of your fruits and vegetables out of packaging, which I think is really cool. And then most of that stuff hasn't traveled very far. So that's really good. But a lot of like snacky type stuff is packaged at the grocery store, and short of being like, you have to bake everything, it's like there's going to be some times that you have to buy stuff. And I think that that's where you have to release that guilt of like, I don't have access to this right now. If you live in an area with a bulk store, that's fantastic. Being able to bring your jars and your own bags. I mean, I'm excited for when that happens. It doesn't mean there's no waste in that scenario. It's on the other end. It's the business end.
Right.
But anywhere we can eliminate the additional packaging. I think that those are little tweaks that we can make. Like I said, you have to evaluate your personal situation. What do you have access to? And then say, okay, I usually get a produce bag for bananas. A lot of times it's not a requirement to put your fruits and vegetables in a bag. You can just grab the bananas.
And I think too, a big thing is like actually using what you have. Like, let's not all jump ahead of ourselves and start throwing everything out because it's sustainable, because it's already created and now it's just going to go sit somewhere else, you know?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
A lot of it is just not buying beyond what you actually need. It's like, I don't need to buy half the things we actually end up buying. So that's going to be the biggest thing for us, is just like slowing down and evaluating what we need and making sure we buy something that's, you know, durable, and like nothing we buy anymore for us, we've decided is going to be like a single use.
Yeah, that's good. I think that another part of the shift in mindset is a lot of people spend leisure time like hanging out at like the mall or like a very popular store that people like to frequent on the weekend and go to the dollar section.
Right.
So I decided very early on, like my weekends weren't going to be spent there. And instead I traded that for outdoors time. Like, and that was years ago.
Right.
Like I don't hang out in stores.
Right. It's like probably like mentally, like you probably feel so much better.
Yeah.
Spending time.
I do.
I mean, that's like scientific, a fact. Like you like outdoors instead of like inside, being surrounded by things that are being advertised to you that you need, and you need this and you need that.
Yeah.
I think another problem is like all these hauls we see being posted on social media of just stuff. Like I got all this stuff for what? Because it was $1 and the dollar's it's all plastic. It's all unnecessary. It's 5 times and that's it. It's going to break, or, you know, your kid's going to be over it. So
I know that stuff kind of breaks my heart, but I think you're right. I mean, mentally, this is like, I just can't even explain it. Like being outdoors more, which I've always kind of been an outdoorsy person. Also, like one of my biggest things was I needed to eliminate distraction to be able to open up resources in me physically, mentally, emotionally for other people.
Right.
I wanted to be able and financially be able to donate more, be able to volunteer my time more, because the time I spend cleaning now is like so minimal because I don't have like a ton of stuff. And I'm not even focused on like, oh, that couch is 5 years old. No, the couch looks great. It's still functional. Like I think it's just, it really has lightened my load.
You can still like treat yourself every now and then and buy something nice. Like you don't have to be like for me, a big thing is like, I have always loved vintage clothing and shopping secondhand. And I know that's like a lot of people do, but then to a lot of people that's super off-putting. But I promise you can still have like a huge amount of style and like still be aesthetically pleasing. Your house can still be #goals or whatever, when you stop consuming, like over consuming, and when you buy secondhand, or you're just very conscious about what it is you're buying, what materials they're using, you know, where it's coming from.
Absolutely. This idea that like being minimal or being like eco-conscious means that you don't get to have anything. You basically look like a gray t-shirt. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a gray t-shirt, but it's just not true. Like you can express yourself still.
Right.
You know, I don't need to express myself with 50 pairs of jeans. That's just not me. Like I can have 2 styles of jeans and, you know, and they're secondhand because 90% of what I wear is secondhand. Yeah. But we need clothes. We need things. Like that's just the facts. It's just like take a pause, take a breath.
Right.
It'll help you financially. It'll help you mentally. It'll help you make good decisions and buy things that will last. Like spending $50 on like a really nice pair of pants is okay. if they're not made to fall apart after the first wear.
You have so many good tips on your Instagram, which I'll link here, and your blog. I love all your recipes, and you make a lot of things yourself. Like you have a lot of DIY things that are really cool.
I know that a lot of your like followers are probably moms. So I feel like really the last tip I wanted to give was birthday parties. I think birthday parties can really be wasteful, and we have to have one every year for all of the kids that we have, right? So
it's become a competition.
It has. And
decorations, that, you know.
Yeah, it really has. And the balloons.
Right.
So this last year, we did what we called a secondhand gifting party. So we had a party at a park because it kind of comes with its own decorations.
Right.
And then I asked I either said we don't need gifts because that's not really what we need, but if they did, I would love for them to bring a toy that was their child's toy that they've outgrown. And now it's like when Ezra plays with cars and I know that it was like his friend Zachary's car, like it's just so sentimental to me.
Really?
And yeah. And I promise you, like, I feel like about 75% of the stuff that came that was secondhand, clothes, books, cars, like all sorts of stuff. There's a few new things, and that's okay too. It's okay to love on our kids. But I thought it was so successful. They even brought them in secondhand bags. Like they had old like bags. They didn't buy new packaging because they knew I would appreciate that, you know? And then I just changed what I could. Like I brought silverware. Obviously I couldn't have a bunch of glass plates out there. So I did use like a paper plate.
Right.
But again, it's just making like the changes that you can that make sense for the situation.
That's such a great idea. This year we're doing it at like a little play place already. So I'm not bringing like any decoration, like nothing. She gets her cake. And I was a little bit frustrated because the place said like everything has to be disposable because it's facilities. But I went online and I got all biodegradable plates and forks, and you can do it.
Yeah. No, that's good. You just got to adjust to the situation.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
And with kids, if they're used to elaborate birthday parties, like my older son was, I used to just theme the heck out of things.
Right.
They'll be okay in the shift.
Right.
It'll happen. What you can do is go do something together instead.
Right.
Like it'll all be okay. I promise that like consuming stuff, isn't going to make their life better or not better.
Kids are sponges. They are going to grow up living a similar lifestyle because, that's what they've learned. So.
They're going to be conscious, and I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you so much for sharing, Leslie. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. I also really want to encourage everybody watching to check out Leslie's blog, which I will link below. And I also think we should all start thinking of little things we can implement into our everyday life that are small but impactful. So I'd love to hear tips and tricks from you guys as well.